Okay, we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mayors for a Guaranteed Income press call. My name is Allison Bormel, and I work with MGI. And we're going to kick off the program now. The press call will last 45 minutes and include funding news and plans for these funds, the state of guaranteed income momentum in America, and brief updates from each of the attending mayors. And before we start, just a few housekeeping notes. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand using the icon on your screen. After the mayors speak, we'll open it up for questions. And if you are directing your question to a specific mayor, please do say that when you ask your question. Please have your question be relevant to MGI and the announcement being made today. And then once you're called on, we will unmute your mic so you can speak. We will be recording this call and we will provide all attendees a copy of the recording. So now, without further ado, I'm pleased to turn it over to Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, California, and the founder of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income.
Thank you so much, Allison, and good morning to all my fellow mayors, and good morning to you, Laura. Really exciting news today, but I want to first set the context. So this exciting news is coming during a pandemic where so many of our constituents were in food lines for Thanksgiving. We have people calling our offices asking about how they're going to pay for their water bill or their utilities, of folks who are terrified about eviction moratoriums expiring, of small business owners and workers who are frustrated that they're not able to work and make as much money as they usually make, and are wondering where is the solution, where is the action that's equivalent to the scale of the deprivation. And that's where Mayors for Guaranteed Income comes in. We started this organization in July as responsive both to COVID-19, but also to the protests around Black Lives Matter, understanding that our economy has to be one that's inclusive, that's just, and that lifts up the basic dignity of all people. So to that end, America's leaders, the mayors on the front lines, have been doing everything we possibly could to provide for our constituents with COVID-19 relief funds, with philanthropic funds, and with playing rabbits out of hats. And to that end, we're excited to announce that today, Jack Dorsey and his Smart Small Initiative is giving $15 million to the Mayors for Guaranteed Income Network to support each and every mayor in doing a basic income, guaranteed income pilot in their communities. And let's be clear about why this is being done. That philanthropy and charity is not justice, but in the absence of leadership and action from Mitch McConnell and the Republican-led Senate, our constituents need cash relief. Our constituents need regular ongoing payments. And if they won't provide them, us mayors will do everything possible can. But we're always looking towards policy. We're always pushing for what our country could be. And we see this as one step closer to meet the immediate needs of some of our constituents, but also telling Mitch McConnell, again, in the Republican-led Senate, that we need a COVID relief package that includes monthly stimulus checks. And finally, this announcement is not about the mayors. It's not about Jack Dorsey. It's about the American people. It's about people like Kidd Plumber, who you hear from later, people who are playing by the rules, people who are deemed essential workers, people who are told that they cannot shelter in place, people who are told that if they work hard and play by the rules, everything will be okay, and who are still struggling for the basic necessities and to be treated with basic human dignity. So with that, I turn it over to you, Laura.
Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you for inviting me to be here today. I just want to say, I don't think I'd be here today if it wasn't for the SEED program. Like they said, my name is Kidd Plumber. I was originally born in San Francisco, California. I wound up in LA for a while and then back to Northern California to Oakland, where I had a problem, and I wound up having to leave my job and go out on disability. Couldn't afford my rent there in Oakland anymore. So that's how I wound up down in Stockton, because the rent was a lot cheaper. During this time, since I've been in Stockton, had a few little problems happen. I had a fire at an apartment that I was living in last year. 16 families were displaced. Only 4 families had insurance. So I stayed at a motel for about 2.5 months, extended stay in Stockton. It was rough. They put me out the day after Christmas, and I had a friend that let me come stay with her until I was able to finally get another apartment in May. And the fire originated in October of 2019. I finally got an apartment this May. So I'm breathing a sigh of relief at this point, because I think without being with SEED or being a participant, I don't think I'd be sitting here in this chair right now. So all I can say is thank you to Mayor Tubbs and everyone else that had something to do with it.
Thank you so much, Laura. And now we're going to turn it over to St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter to speak.
Thank you very much. I don't think I can give honor to this work more so than Laura did. Thank you so much for sharing your story with Laura. With us, Laura. That's really incredibly powerful. Our goal is to replicate that success and that story and the power of what you just said. We in St. Paul created an Office of Financial Empowerment here in our city a couple of years ago when I first came into office, to reflect the truth that while some of our residents see money working well for them through their assets or through their investments, too many of our residents, too many of our families, too many of our children, too many of our businesses still see money working against them. And if we can leverage the power of city government to help more families make money work for them, we could unleash the creativity, unleash the potential of our entire community. We launched this fall with a combination of CARES dollars and philanthropic dollars. We launched this fall our People's Prosperity Pilot, which is a guaranteed income pilot that identified a cohort of 150 low-income families who have seen, with young children who have seen their income impacted by the COVID crisis, and to select those families to receive a $500 monthly benefit for a period of 18 months while we work with the national research team to evaluate the impacts on those families, on those children, on our local economy, on their spending. And while we move it forward, we are really appreciative of following in Stockton's footsteps to address and to eliminate what we often hear as racist tropes that say, if you give those people money, here's what they'll do with it. We've seen in Stockton, we're seeing in St. Paul, we're seeing around the country that when low-income families have a little bit more money at the end of the month, they pay rent, they buy groceries, they get a car fixed up or get a bus card so they can get to work. They do things that benefit our entire community. We are partnering with members in our communities of color and our lower income communities and our new American communities to ensure these benefits are accessible to everyone in our community. And the resources that we're announcing today are going to help to expand that work significantly. Again, we're helping a set of families in our community who are in crisis right now. Our entire communities are all in crisis right now, while helping to prove this science that can help advance these types of policies on both the statewide and federal levels. I'm honored to be a part of this work, very appreciative of the leadership of Mayor Tubbs and all the other mayors who have joined this work nationwide, and looking forward to seeing the fruits of our national leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Carter. And now we are going to turn it to Providence Mayor Jorge Elorza.
Good morning, everyone. I want to jump off of that point. Thank you, Mayor Tubbs, for leading this effort and for building the momentum that has brought us to this point. We really appreciate your leadership. You've inspired us, and our goal is that collectively through this work, we will be inspiring not only other mayors, but hopefully governors and the federal government to take this on as a statewide and national priority. So I'm brought to this work because my parents are immigrants who came to this country seeking out what every generation of immigrant before them has sought, and that's access to the American dream. This idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, that you're going to get ahead. And so long as you stick with it, yourself, but certainly your children, are going to enjoy a better life. And the reality is that in our country today, that American dream isn't as clear that it exists as it did generations ago. Now it's a coin toss whether our children are going to do better than we did in the previous generation. Now that is fundamentally un-American, and it goes against our national sense of identity of who we are. And so what we want to do with this guaranteed income program is help people get a leg up. Now, people are working 2 jobs and 3 jobs. They're working in the gig economy. And this is having an incredible toll on our families, from taking them away from family time with their kids, to taking them away from those associate degree and community college classes that they would want to take, or skipping out on investments on themselves and their families that they otherwise would make. And this is levying just a heavy, heavy psychological burden and toll on so many of our families. What we want to do is lighten that burden and lighten that toll as much as possible. You know, we believe that fundamentally, people are poor because they don't have money. And so if we're serious in this country about addressing poverty, then let's address it in the most direct and effective way possible. Let's give them the means that they have to direct their own future. And we're also committed to doing it in a way that trusts the individuals who are receiving it. You know, an approach that is based primarily on the fundamental dignity and freedom of every individual. You know, we, as Mayor Carter mentioned, you know, there are a number of really unfortunate and racist tropes around this issue. You know, we don't slap these kinds of requirements and these kinds of restrictions on how other institutions spend their dollars. Yet somehow as a society, we have lost faith and we don't trust poor people to do what's right with their money. But what is Mayor Tubbs has shown in Stockton and what we're seeing in other demonstration projects, if you trust people, if you base a program on their individual dignity, that they're going to spend these dollars on the bare essentials. They're going to spend these dollars immediately. They're not going to save them over the long term, which just means that the money is going to be recycled in the local economy and it benefits everyone in that community. And they're going to be able to support their families in the way that they know best how to do so. So for all of these reasons, you know, we're committed to these demonstration projects, and we want to inspire other mayors and other elected officials at every level of government to make sure that we have guaranteed income as a national priority. Let's get serious in our country about addressing poverty, and let's make sure that we're addressing poverty by fighting poverty and not by waging a war on poor people. This is the most effective way to do so.
Thank you, Mayor Elorza. We are now going to turn it to Tacoma Mayor Victoria Woodards.
Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Unmute. What an honor it is this morning to be on this Zoom call with so many amazing mayors from across the country who are committed to this work. I first want to take this opportunity to thank Michael Tubbs for his leadership. I remember when I got the call this summer to participate, and we've been having some conversations in our community about guaranteed income, but joining MGI really assisted us in moving faster. And I also want to thank Jack Dorsey for believing enough in this work to support MGI across the country. But when we first had this conversation and we started talking about it in our community, you know, so often right now, it seems like it takes forever to get anything done in a time when people need help now. And the ability to expedite our pilot project is going to be a big help to families in our community. In Tacoma here, we are delighted to be working alongside of the United Way, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, with the Tacoma Urban League, Sound Outreach, and the Tacoma Housing Authority as partners to make sure that as we launch our pilot, that we're getting to the people in our community who need it the most. Here in Pierce County in Tacoma, we talk a lot about ALICE. And ALICE through United Way is recognized as asset limited, income constraint, and employed. And I grew up ALICE. My mom went to work every single day trying to make a living for herself to take care of her family. And even though she worked every single day, at night there was still a question of what we would eat for dinner. And that affects so many of our families. People, as you heard from other mayors, say work 1 or 2 jobs, and it's still not enough to support themselves and their family, and they still wonder how they're going to be able to take care of themselves. This project gives us an opportunity to let them be prepared for that emergency, to allow them to be able to buy food for their family and not have that question, to be able to focus on finding a better job or a better opportunity. And so we are delighted to be focused on Alice. United Way has a goal that by 2028, we will lift 15,000 families out of poverty. With the launch of our MGI program, that's going to get us a long way in achieving that goal. When I talk about Alice, 31%, almost one third of the people who live in this county are Alice. 1/3. Just think about yourself in a room with 2 other people. One of you is Alice. So this is going to give us an opportunity to address Alice and to give Alice help. Providing a guaranteed income is an innovative tool for us to make progress on that goal that eradicates poverty and continue to support our Alice families. This generous gift will significantly accelerate our project. It will move us forward quickly. And we are going to be thrilled to be able to offer this support to members of our community. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you and so grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mayor Woodards. And now we're going to turn it over to Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Well, thank you, and a very good morning to everybody. If this looks like a bare background, it's because I'm in my daughter's bedroom because I just got her logged on for school. We know all the struggles that America is going through right now, and I couldn't be more honored to be with this group of mayors and change makers who recognize that we're not powerless. Even at the moments of greatest suffering, moments of our greatest pain, these are the moments in which we transform and build a better, reimagined nation. And I also want to thank Mayor Michael Tubbs, who has been an incredible brother mayor, not just here in California, but a leader among leaders. And each one of these leaders who has stepped up to co-found this organization. And I want to thank Jack Dorsey, who has stepped up here in Los Angeles and stepped up in the country at a moment when people are in, one paycheck, one deposit away from extreme poverty, homelessness. This is the lifeline, but it shouldn't just be a lifeline in a crisis, because long before COVID, we've had too many Americans living in crisis. Now, here's the good news, everybody. We actually reduced poverty at the beginning of this pandemic in America. We reduced poverty at the beginning of this pandemic in America. And when I tell people that, they don't believe it, but it was because we had Congress in a bipartisan way step up and give a basic income to Americans who needed it. And so it was the difference maker. We've seen long before the pandemic how this transforms poverty. What Mayor Woodards was just talking about, the stress of growing up poor, which you cannot quantify later on in life because of the trauma that it causes too many young Americans that they carry with them for the rest of their lives. We saw the impact in Los Angeles at the start of COVID-19 when so many families were struggling. And we launched an initiative called the Angelino Card. Jack was one of our donors. We had $36 million in direct aid for the hardest hit families. And we didn't ask what their immigration status was. We didn't ask what color their skin was. We didn't ask what age they were. We just merely looked, make sure they income qualified, and we got the help to them thanks to MasterCard with a cash card quickly. And it was to cover bills. It was to pay the rent. It was to pick up food. And yes, even in a pandemic, have childcare so you could do that job interview and get employment after you had been laid off. And we showed that a guaranteed line of income was the difference between sinking and staying afloat. So we've seen that in Stockton. We're going to see this blossom around America. But let's be clear, American cities won't be able to lift this long-term by themselves. This is to prove the concept so that we can have national and state leadership that says a basic income is cheaper than the cost of poverty. A basic income doesn't leave talent and investment on the sidelines that America needs to succeed. And so this is the moment to act. It is exactly when it is darkest that we bring these rays of sunshine. And this donation will help us see that spread around America. It demands our energy. It demands our focus. Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. We say in Spanish, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. I couldn't be prouder to walk with this group of visionaries and with this movement to make sure that there's a more just, fair, and equitable America for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Garcetti. And now we are going to hear from Mayor Peduto.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you as well to first Jack Dorsey. This commitment to the 26 cities that have become a part of what will be not only a pilot program and an experiment, but also the beginning of understanding that a guaranteed basic income, something that is practiced in other parts of the world, as Dr. King had stated, is the most direct and obvious way of reducing poverty. A special thank you to my friend, Mayor Tubbs. Your leadership on this issue has now positioned our country to be able to see the direct results that will occur. You have led us and your fellow mayors through this important pilot program. And what we will be able to do in all of our different municipalities is to be able to show to the American people that a guaranteed basic income is the most direct path out of poverty. Pittsburgh's the home of Mr. Rogers. So when we look for helpers. We look for the Jack Dorseys and the Mayor Tubbs to be able to work to help our neighbors to be able to sustain themselves. We have created a program in Pittsburgh, the Assisted Cash Experiment, ACE-PGH, which utilizes and is based off of empirical data that had been gathered over the past 2 years. Last year, through our Gender Equity Commission in Pittsburgh, we were able to quantifiably show that not only is discrimination prevalent within our city when it comes to gender, but it is exponentially so when it comes to race. In fact, a Black woman has a better opportunity and chance in almost any other comparable city than they do within the city of Pittsburgh. So based off of that information, ACE-PGH will use an empirical database of 100 Black women at 50% AMI that are a part of our financial empowerment centers, and we'll team them with 100 others throughout the city based upon zip code in a control group, and to look to find out whether we can lessen disparity within our city by creating this program. We will be able to show through data what a guaranteed basic income will do of lessening disparity in several key areas. And together we'll be able to work with cities all across this country in calling that information together in order to be able to look at it through a much greater lens. I'm confident that when people are given the option of being able to have assistance that is not narrowly defined through a government program, but instead where they have their own ability to recognize what their needs are, that we can lessen disparity and we can eradicate poverty. And through this program and through the financial assistance of Jack Dorsey and through the leadership of Michael Tubbs, Pittsburgh is proud to be a partner with our fellow mayors from around the country. I could not pick a committee that I would rather serve on than the group of mayors that have joined to be a part of this incredibly important pilot program, a program that will show to the American people a more direct route to eradicate poverty.
Thank you, Mayor Peduto. And now we are going to hear from Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway.
Thank you. And I want to thank Mayor Tubbs for your leadership and for bringing us all together. It's such a great group of mayors, and it's such a great piece of work that we're here to do. I joined Mayors for a Guaranteed Income because I believe that a national guaranteed income program would help solve many of the challenges that our community here in Madison faces. And as Mayor Tubbs said, we need national action on this issue. And that's why we're all here, is to help motivate that national action. Research shows that ongoing direct payments to people would help alleviate poverty more effectively than expansions to unemployment insurance benefits or to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and would allow those most economically vulnerable in our society to maintain security in their lives by having enough money to cover their basic needs. And we learned this because we know that the majority of CARES Act stimulus funding, almost 60%, was spent on housing, food, utilities, and other bills. So we know that this works. And I think that the beauty of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income is that we are showing and will show in our communities all of the ways in which this can work. And that's really only possible because of this generous donation from Jack Dorsey. And I want to thank Mr. Dorsey by providing the seed funding for Mayors for a Guaranteed Income cities to implement these direct payment pilots. Mr. Dorsey has really bolstered the ability for residents of our cities to chart their own path to stability, allowing them to make choices about meeting their needs in ways that are imbued with dignity. In Madison, we have an affordable housing crisis, which the city and the county have prioritized in our annual budgets, but we also realize that we need other tools and mechanisms to fully address this crisis. Our vision for guaranteed minimum income or direct payments pilot here in Madison is to place housing affordability and security at the center of the conversation. My staff here in Madison are already exploring options to pair a direct payments program with existing programs that support those that are housing insecure. We're hoping that by creating a direct payments program that centers housing, we will be able to explore the impacts of direct payments on those that struggle to obtain and retain affordable housing options in our city. And we're hoping that this will contribute to the national conversation in the creation of a national guaranteed income program. We could not do this work here in Madison without this support from Mr. Dorsey and from Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. And I am really hopeful that this generous gift from Mr. Dorsey motivates and incentivizes giving from philanthropists within our own community who have an interest in empowering residents to make the decisions that enable stability, security, and growth in their lives. This is a tremendous opportunity for Madison, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a part of this group and a recipient of this funding, but it's also an incredible opportunity for our country. And I really hope that we can seize this moment and move forward towards a national program, because that ultimately is what our country needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And now we are going to turn it to Columbia Mayor Steve Benjamin.
Thank you so much, and it is a real pleasure and honor. I miss all of our friends and family, so having a chance to spend some time on a call with so many of you doing great work around the country, it's edifying. We've heard Professor Eddie Glaude often talk about the heartland of the country, and when he talks about the South, he references us as the soul of America, and we firmly believe that. So when I heard about Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, we really wanted to be one of the first Southern cities, along with some of my brothers and sisters on here, to test the concept. I had the good fortune of being dear friends with Michael Tubbs, who's been a fantastic mayor of Stockton and a national leader, not only on this issue, but so many issues that speak to the importance and power of human dignity. So when he reached out, we were able to observe the success of the Stockton Seed Project, and we really wanted to explore the possibility of recreating that here in Columbia. With the initial $100,000 in seed funding made available through NGI with the support of Jack Dorsey, to whom we're all indebted, we put together a small project team, and we're pleased to announce that early next year we're going to launch our pilot program that we call CLIMB here in Columbia, the Columbia Life and Improvement Monetary Boost. The funds are going to be managed through our Central Carolina Community Foundation, a longstanding foundation that's been central to almost every major effort that we've launched here over the last several years. And several of my staff members, along with some local consultants who've helped craft the project specifics. Here in Columbia, and many of you know that so often we get our very best ideas from each other. We take each other's ideas and we modify them for our own personal purposes. We looked at Jackson, Mississippi, and Magnolia Mothers under Mayor Lumumba. And we decided that we would build off the existing infrastructure of our Midlands Fatherhood Coalition, a wonderful community organization here that focuses on fathers and families, helping our men become the responsible fathers or co-parents, and that we would select 100 fathers currently enrolled or recently enrolled in a program that would be randomly selected to receive $500 a month over the course of 2 years. The Midlands Fatherhood Coalition is going to expand their data collection and analysis efforts, and so we can really measure the impact of this program on the men who will be receiving the guaranteed income, and the impact that we know that they can have and will have on the surrounding communities. So we're also going to do our very best to collect the powerful stories. Ms. Kidd Plumber, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, your testimony with us. And we know that obviously we all have to connect here and use data, but when you're able to humanize that data and tell the true stories of the people who live and work and fortify our communities, that's when we'll be able to hopefully infect the minds of those in the national level and help them understand the leadership that we need here, not just in America's cities. We're going to steal some ideas from Mayor Garcetti, the MasterCard approach, a CLIMB logo debit card that's going to be loaded up every single month and allow us to maintain data on how the funding is used. And we will, of course, maintain participant anonymity, but allow us to, we believe, again, strengthen the narrative that folks need these funds to participate in the things that we all take advantage of every single month. So today's announcement, $15 million for participating cities in MGI is incredibly great news. We're going to use it to make sure our CLIMB project is successful and gets up and running by the spring of next year. And again, it's an honor to be on the call with each and every one of our friends that have incredible support of Jack Dorsey and Brother Tubbs. I can't tell you how much you mean to us, and your leadership has meant to us. Keep on striving, brother. And thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. And next up, we have New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell.
Thank you, and good morning to my brother and sister mayors on the call. I just appreciate every time us getting together and focusing on our people every step of the way. I want to thank Mayor Tubbs, for your vision, your innovation. You just haven't stopped, and I just look forward to your continued leadership, because I know that you will continue to provide that, no doubt about it. And also Jack Dorsey has been a partner with the city of New Orleans, and I am just grateful to be a part of MGI and what we'll be able to do collectively for our people. As we've heard a lot, this morning, and of course, today we still recognize the need to combat systemic racism with an undeniable principle that Americans deserve a guaranteed minimum income, no doubt about it. And we also have learned that 76% of Americans, they support direct cash payments through the pandemic, and 55% support direct cash payments indefinitely. COVID-19, as you all know, has exacerbated the economic and health disparities within African American communities, as well as our Latina and Hispanic communities as well, the hardest hit. And we were at a deficit, you know, when it hit us, and of course, disproportionately just throughout this pandemic. And as mayors, you know, we see every single day the impacts that this has had on our people. The job losses, they're real. The city of New Orleans is a destination city. Its #1 industry has been hospitality and tourism. And of course, that economy is going to take a while to bounce back. 44,000 of our people are receiving UI benefits now. And every week, hundreds are being denied benefits. Nothing helps a struggling family like money in the pocket. And nowhere is that more apparent than in our African American and our Latino communities, who are more likely to be unemployed, but less likely to get unemployment benefits. As I mentioned, weekly, our people are being denied. And so we're already also paying to incarcerate people. So it totally makes sense to spend a fraction of that money to keep people in their homes, in their communities, and absolutely lifting them up out of poverty, and definitely not wanting our folks to have to commit crimes in order to find some level of security. It doesn't work. And we know that many crimes are driven by financial insecurity, and tackling this head on also reduces crime. In our city right now, we do have a pilot program that started a couple of months ago. We started with our young people, with schools. One is a Rooted School, and 4.0 schools are rolling out a pilot that provides weekly stipends to 10 students in their founding class. And so starting with $50 a week, and the financial hurdles are a significant barrier to our students' success. So we pilot this out with our young people, but with this new partnership, we'll be able to deal with our adult population as well. The housing insecurity is an issue, food insecurity, our homeless population, you name it. So we're going to do everything that we can to lift our people up, providing cash payments over a period of 18 months. And we're going to measure the impact and also be able to demonstrate that when you give people cash, that they know how to use it wisely, and they also know their needs better than anyone else. And that's where those dollars go towards. It's been proven to be effective, and we're going to do just that in our city. And with this partnership, we're going to see the impacts across the country. So I'm just pleased to be a partner, and I'm excited really about the work that we're going to get done, because it's going to impact the quality of life of our people in a direct way. So thank you again for allowing me to participate, our city to participate, and through this generosity of MGI and of course, Jack Dorsey and Mayor Tubbs, you know, man, you just keep on delivering every time. And I thank you. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to hear from Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney.
Well, first, I want to begin by thanking my friend, Mayor Tubbs. Mayor, you are one of the most courageous, bravest local leaders we have in the United States of America. And I want to appreciate you for your service and for what you've done for your community and what you will continue to do for a lot of American citizens as well. And also, I want to say thank you to Jack Dorsey for this contribution too. We're going to lift a lot of people up because of his treasure. And also, I want to say how blessed we feel here in the great city of Richmond as well. And we launched our guaranteed income pilot program called Richmond Resilience Initiative just over a month ago. And to have already seen this sort of investment in Richmond families on top of what the city, our Office of Community Well Building, and also with our private funder, the Robbins Foundation, we've been able to see this fund, and it's been encouraging for me to see that it's been helping a lot of people in my community. It's partnerships and courage. I think there are the keys to making initiatives like this actually work, making them happen. And the RRI, the Richmond Resilience Initiative, launched as a result of strong partnerships with the Robbins Foundation. And for the same reason, we were able to take this program to the next level for our family's benefit. See, this I think is, it's a game changer, but it's more than just a game changer. This is a life-changing experience for a lot of our families. And I do not use that word life lightly. It's a life changer for a lot of our families. Because of this generous strategic investment, Richmond Resilience Initiative will be able to serve up to 37 more families here in our city. That's up to 37 more heads of households who are prepared to face the daily expenses that come with raising a family: childcare, groceries, transportation costs, remote virtual learning equipment, and even being able to supplement the rent and to avoid evictions during this global health crisis pandemic. See, the beauty of this program, the beauty of UGI, is the flexibility it provides to our families. With flexibility comes dignity, and that's non-negotiable for us here in the great city of Richmond. See, we trust our families, and I'm so glad to have allies who also believe in the same, who believe in our families as well. You know, when we launched the Richmond Resilience Initiative a month ago, I shared what it feels like to essentially live month to month, the way I did as a kid. I was raised by my grandmother, and even at a young age, at 8, 10 years old, my grandmother would tell me to check in on where we were in our bank account on the 28th and the 29th of the month. And I remember calling on more than one occasion and having to report the news back to my grandmother that we only had $50 or $60 left for the remainder of the month. And to hear that over the phone and have to actually repeat that to your grandmother and to see the look on her face, grandma was always going to make it work. She was going to make sure that we were going to be fed, that we were going to go to bed with a full tummy. But the stress, the fear that I saw on her face as well is something that I think no child should have to experience. And so that's why what we're doing with our program, RRI, we are essentially catching those who may potentially fall through the cracks. And what we've learned throughout this pandemic is that the cliff is truly a threat. You don't know at times whether or not this could be the month I fall off the cliff. And that's why having this safety net in terms of providing these dollars to families who needed the most in a global crisis, in a pandemic, and in an economic downturn, or is going to actually save lives and help a number of families out there. That's why I'm excited to be doing this alongside some of the most progressive leaders in the United States of America, those who are on the front lines, mayors all across this country who are dedicated to ensuring that we provide a universal guaranteed income to those families who need it the most. Once again, I want to say thank you to Jack Dorsey, and thank you to my friend and my brother, Michael Tubbs, for their work on this project. And together, we're going to help a number of families, and we're going to make a difference in the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Stoney. And now we're going to hear from Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Thank you and good afternoon. Mayor Stoney is a tough act to follow, but he is my brother, as is Michael Tubbs, and it's wonderful to see all of our fellow mayors here today. I was running a bit late today because I just returned from a ribbon cutting at a local community center. And what I shared at that ribbon cutting was that I was there a few years ago, and an over 6 feet tall young man who could have been my son or one of my son's friends told me how much the community center meant to him. And I said, yeah, I know it's a great place for you to come and gather. I know you all have fun here. And he said, no, I don't think you understand what this place means to me. He said, if I didn't have this place to come during the summer, I would not eat. This is a community center that's in my community. And each time I share that story, it breaks my heart for so many reasons. One being that this is my community where there's so much prosperity, yet there's still so much despair. And so when Mayor Tubbs shared the vision of a guaranteed income, it was with young men like that in mind that we readily signed up in Atlanta. And it is also so appropriate and fitting that we be a part of this, because as of the home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the vision that he shared almost 50 years ago for a guaranteed income, we know that the work continues. So thank you so much for the generous donation. Thank you for the partnership for making this possible. This is something that will impact our communities, not in the abstract, but in the here and now. There are young men all over our city, young men, as Mayor Stoney described, like himself, young men like the young man that I've described from our community center, who are in need of the most basic of things, something to eat every day. And this is what a guaranteed income will do for our communities. So we are grateful to be a part of this, and grateful for all the things that we know it will bring to our communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before I turn it back to Mayor Tubbs, just a reminder to ask a question, use the raise the hand icon on your screen, and we'll unmute you to ask your questions. But first, I'll turn it back to Mayor Tubbs for some closeout remarks before questions.
Well, there's nothing left to be said, but just that I think every mayor has really embodied this idea of choices, this idea of agency. And these mayors chose to be courageous in this moment. These mayors chose to solve a problem. And these mayors chose to prioritize the dignity and the needs of their constituents. In the same way, it just can't be mayors using philanthropic money to do this. That hunger, that economic insecurity, that evictions, that homelessness, these are all choices. Choices we are making as a society to not solve issues. Choices we are making when we know what answers could be. So again, we are doing this not just because we have big hearts, which we do, but because there's a real need. And because, again, Mitch McConnell has been blocking such progress in the Senate. So I hope you see mayors from the East Coast to the West Coast to the Midwest to the soul of this nation, as Mayor Benjamin said, the dirty South, or as Mayor Bottoms always says, the South got something to say. And what we're all saying is that our folks need dignity, that COVID-19 has made it very, very clear to build back better. We have to make sure everyone has an income floor, and we're all taking considerable political risk in doing this. But we understand that the biggest risk is nothing changes, and people like the young man at the Atlanta Community Center are still hungry. People like the young Mayor Stoney are still being evicted, and people like our wonderful constituents in all of our cities are having to climb further and further while falling further and further behind. So with that, I'm sure all the mayors on this call are happy to answer any questions. We again thank Jack Dorsey. We thank the leadership of the mayors. We also hope that our other leaders follow our lead and put the needs of our people front and center.
So if there are any questions, please raise your hand, or if easier, you can put it in the chat to everybody. We'll just give it a few more seconds. Looks like we have a question in the chat from Shannon. Any idea on how the 15 million will be distributed?
Yeah, so essentially, and I'm sure mayors, please jump in with sort of what you plan on doing, but every city in the network is guaranteed up to $500,000 to put towards pilots. So many of the mayors on this call have pilots up and running. I know Tacoma just passed something through the council to begin the process of United Way. I know Mayor Benjamin mentioned launching something early next year, Mayor Peduto as well. Richmond, Mayor Stoney mentioned sort of expanding existing pilots, same with St. Paul. So every city will be giving up to $500,000 to put out, to accelerate the pilots they were already planning on doing and have been raising money for since the summer.
Dave Siders asked, is it 15 million total from Dorsey?
Yes.
Any other questions? Oh, one more question, Mayor Tubbs.
At least 26, but it might be up to 30 now in terms of how many current cities. But the folks on this call were there from the beginning, before it was sexy, before there was any guarantee of any money, who said, you know what, we're at least going to advocate for the idea and do our best because our constituents deserve it. So again, I think the leadership of these mayors should be rewarded, because this was we launched this in the middle of Black Lives Matter protests, when we were all trying to figure out sort of how to respond to COVID-19, how to respond to the protests in our cities. And we decided to collectively that the issue wasn't just police brutality. The issue wasn't just COVID-19. It was pervasive economic insecurity and the violence of poverty and lack of opportunity. And that we figured it was time for us collectively to be as bold and clear about what needed to be done.
And a quick clarification on the 15 million, it's 15 million plus the 3 million that he had already donated. So a total of 18.
Yeah, people are good at math, absolutely. This is
yes.
15.
For sure, for sure. A question from Laura, are you trying to get more mayors to join MGI?
Absolutely, and I think that the MGI team, Suki Samra, the director, and Cameron Burns, the deputy director, have been in every mayor on this call's inbox and in their staff's inbox. I'm ensuring that they have all the resources and data they need. But also working with the inbound influx of calls from mayors saying, how do I join? How do I be a part?
And then Mayor Tubbs, there's a question about handing over the leadership of the group when your term is up.
I think the beautiful thing about this group is that everyone in this group is a leader of leaders, and they're all superstar mayors. So my quote unquote leadership has just been doing a lot of fundraising and begging for the dollars, but these folks are self-motivated. So they're leaders. So it's just a matter of convening. So whether mayor or not, if I'm able to do so, and depending on what happens next, I'll still be very actively involved, and even more so if I have more time.
And Mayor Elorza, there's a question for you. What will the pilot program look like, and when will it start?
I was writing the response in the chat, but we're working with several community stakeholders right now, and we're designing the program, and we're hoping to launch anywhere between March 1st and July 1st.
Great. Oh, and here's another question. Has there been a disparity in the race ethnicity of mayors that are in support?
When the white folks would answer?
Well, I don't know why we, more white folks didn't jump on early. But I think, it really has been impressive to me how the list has been growing and growing rapidly over time. And, I think that it is not a bad thing to lift up the leadership of Black mayors in this time. And I want to, again, thank Mayor Tubbs for his leadership. But I think this is something that is relevant to every city. And I certainly would encourage every mayor to consider at least finding out more about Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, if not jumping right on board and helping us to advocate. And, we are all talking about the pilots that we're running or going to run in our cities, but it is equally important that we collectively are working to advocate for a national program, and we can certainly use the help of mayors all across the country in that advocacy. So I would invite, again, every mayor to join us in this important work.
Mayor Tubbs, there's a question for you about concern about political backlash to basic income.
Yeah, I think that, and that's the job of leadership. In this moment, we don't need politicians, we need leaders. And I think that what's more controversial than any backlash is this idea that in the richest country in the world, we have babies sleeping in tents and in cars. We have essential workers who are working 2 jobs and can't afford to eat. We have folks who are spending all night helping people during a pandemic and then spend all day in lines at food banks. That's incredibly controversial. And I think we've seen consensus on this issue. We saw Congress in a bipartisan way pass stimulus checks, pass giving money for people in March. And as Mayor Garcetti said, we saw that doing so decreased poverty, got to the result that we wanted to see. So I think there's more backlash, in fact, in not doing anything in this moment and allowing people to continue to suffer, to continue preaching a gospel of trickle-down economics when more and more people are hungry, when more and more people are not working, when more and more people are not housing insecure. That's where the risk is. I think this is a great opportunity for folks to show leadership and to really challenge our thinking. Because again, a lot of the assumptions we had about how the economy worked would be great if they were true. It would be great if you worked one job, you could afford rent. I think that's what we all want to get to, and that would be great. Unfortunately, that's not true in 99% of counties in this country. It would be great if folks just worked hard and they'll be able to pay their bills. But that's not true, because I know in Stockton, the hardest working people oftentimes make the least and oftentimes struggle the most. So I think the backlash is really inertia and not doing anything. And that as mayors, we're prepared to always lead and always to be first and always advance a conversation, keeping the dignity and needs of our constituents front and center.
I would just want to highlight that. I think that's exactly right. Change is difficult. Change is hard. And I see across this call a set of mayors who have called for change, not just regarding our economic structure, but our democratic structure and the way our communities and our country work. I think that's really clear. Certainly, there will be people who see this as a big change. The biggest surprise to me, I think, is that, here we are 60 years into a war on poverty, and the notion of investing directly in low-income families still feels strange and revolutionary. That, to me, is a surprise. We're a country that has shown we can do anything that we put our minds to. We can put people on the moon and send people to Mars and win conflicts and do all of those types of things. Suddenly, when we start talking about supporting our families and children better, suddenly when we start talking about raising the floor of what it means to be an American, suddenly when we start talking about taking care of each other as though we're all family, we start pinching pennies. I think this is about a shift in how we value our resources, how we value our community members, how we value our kind of public dollars. And certainly that, I think, will create some getting used to for a lot of us. But I'll tell you, the things that we're used to are all the things that put us on the starting line of the pandemic that we've experienced and the pandemic economy that we've experienced over the last year or so. And I think what we are saying is we are not looking for a route back to where we were back in January. We are not looking for a route back to where we were a year ago or a generation ago. We are looking for a route forward to a fundamentally new way of people experiencing and participating in our economy and our democracy. And that, as Mayor Tubbs has said, will require much more than politicians. It'll require strong leadership like the mayors on this call are providing right now.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for participating. I don't see any additional questions, but if you do have any, please do email us and we will be sure to get back to you. You can email Sadia, S-A-A-D-I-A @mayorsforagi.org. Again, that's S-A-A-D-I-A @mayorsforagi.org if you have any additional questions or further needs. And of course, we'll send a recording of this to all of you shortly. And with that, thank you everyone for joining. I'll turn it back to Mayor Tubbs one last time if he has any closeout messages.
We need a guaranteed income. Goodbye, everyone.